One of his phone calls, Ajit Doval says to you that we don't know what's going to happen.
We knew there would be demands, and the main demand we knew from day one would be Masood Azhar. The crucial call came on the 30th.
In your book, you write that when Ajit Doval gives up hope, it's a bit unnerving. And in one of his phone calls, Ajit Doval says to you that we don't know what's going to happen. He was implying that the negotiators themselves may not be safe.
Yeah. Negotiators may not be safe, or how this would end, it was getting out of their hand.
Let's talk about what is called the ghost passenger of IC 814.
Nobody knew. And that is the reason we never spoke about it, we never advertised it. His life would have been in jeopardy.
Mr. Dulat, tell us about the first call that Ajit Doval makes to you from Kandahar. I don't know how many people know, but in your memoirs, Life in the Shadows, what happened with IC 814 is very well documented. Ajit Doval, today the National Security Advisor, then was one of the key negotiators sent by the Vajpayee government, along with others, Anand Arni, Vivek Karjo, to Kandahar to negotiate with the hijackers.
Yeah.
And he calls you. And in fact, he calls you regularly. And he's urging you for a quick decision from the cabinet, from the government. Do you remember that phone call?
Yeah, I do remember. You see, these guys were in quite a hole in Kandahar, and I could visualize, I could feel for them, because they were four of our best guys. There was Ajit, there was Nachal Sandhu from the IB, and there was C.D. Sahai and Anand Arni, who went from the RNAW, because Brijesh said,
Send your best people.
Send your best, two from the IB and two from the RNAW, or whatever, you guys work it out, you and Shamal, who was the DIB. So we said we'll send two each, and these were the best guys. I mean, also these are two guys, Sahai and Anand, were our Pakistan experts. So we said we'll send them. And I could understand, I could appreciate that this thing, it's not going to be easy. It was a very tough time there, because we had no relationship with the Taliban.
Yeah.
And our relationship with Pakistan was that it's possibly one of the bad periods. So it was a difficult time to go there and to negotiate with what and for whom. And it was difficult.
And in one of his phone calls, Ajit Doval says to you that we don't know what's going to happen. He was implying that the negotiators themselves may not be safe.
Yeah. Negotiators may not be safe, or how this would end, it was getting out of their hand, grip, or whatever. Because you see, the main thing was to whittle down these demands of the hijackers. We knew there would be demands, and the main demand we knew from day one would be Masood Azhar. But what else? So these lists kept coming, 105, 75, 35, till they came down to 4 or 5 or something, and finally agreed to 3.
Yeah.
So when that 3 thing happened, it was on the 30th of December. And that was that crucial cabinet committee and security meeting. And I think Ajit knew in Kandahar that there was this meeting taking place. And he said, he said to me, and it's peculiar, but I had spent 30 years in the IB. I was, for all intents and purposes, an IB hand. So a lot of these IB guys, when I was at the RNAW, would call me. They felt I was easier to talk to, kind of thing. So I'm not taking any credit away from Shamal. Shamal was a better professional, I'm sure. But Ajit did call me a couple of times, and the crucial call came on the 30th.
In your book, you write that when Ajit Doval gives up hope, it's a bit unnerving. I'm summarizing. But you talk about how anxious Ajit Doval was. He felt at one point that it could all go terribly south.
Yeah, that was on the 30th, I think, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
That, please isko resolve kariye.
Jaldi kariye.
Jaldi kariye. because we don't know what's going to happen here. These guys say that either you resolve this matter, he was talking about in reference to the Taliban, that either you settle this matter or get the hell out of here. We are not responsible anymore. So he felt, there was an air of tension, certainly there. And we could understand it. I could understand it. I felt for these people who were there. And of course, this matter didn't come up really in the CCS because by then, mentally, the government was ready that, let's get it over with now. Enough is enough.
There are many questions, but let's start with what's current right now, the Netflix series. Now, I haven't seen the series. Maybe you've managed to see it finally.
I've seen bits and pieces. I haven't seen the whole
Our common friend Veer Sanghvi says that it is a complete whitewashing of Pakistan in the ISI. Do you have that feeling too?
No, not at all. I mean, as I say, I haven't seen the whole thing. I don't think there's any whitewashing or something. The only impact this series has had on me is that, the really difficult time that the passengers were going through, which didn't strike us on the ground, We felt, but we didn't feel as intensely as you feel if you've seen this, parts of it. It's pretty morbid, and it's sick. So, but that's a movie. I mean,
but the critique or the criticism has been that till very late, you don't actually, the series, I don't know because I haven't seen it, but the series doesn't establish the Pakistani identity accurately of these hijackers who till then are being referred to by their code names. So it's not Hindu Muslim, it's about Pakistan vis-a-vis India.
That's the code names that they were using, I think.
They were, but they obviously had real identities in Pakistan.
Yeah, so why would they mention those identities?
I mean the series, the Netflix series doesn't mention, and now the disclaimer has been added.
Yeah, but it's a movie and it's pretty accurate in that sense. There was a Bhola and there was a doctor and we kept hearing these names,
Yeah.
But we knew, I mean, on the ground as an intelligence agency, we knew what had happened. That this was done. I could tell the CCS on day one that, this has been done to get Masood Azhar released because it had happened before. 2-3 efforts had been made to get him released.
That is the other criticism, that there is a kind of illusion that there may have been a Taliban hand when Taliban had nothing to do with this hijacking. This was clearly a Pakistan plot to get Masood Azhar out.
Yeah, that's right. And it became absolutely clear when they demanded the release of Mushtaq Zargar, because he was their man. Yeah. And when it came down to 3 and they asked for him, we were all surprised. I was surprised. And Farooq resisted that release till the end. He gave me hell for 2.5, 3 hours.
What did he say to you? Because from what I remember at that time, I was reporting this story. Farooq Abdullah said he would resign if these 3 terrorists were released. He did not eventually resign. The story goes that the governor, Girish Saxena, managed to prevail on him not to resign. But what did he say to you? Did he tell you that you're making a terrible mistake?
Oh, he said it over and over and over again. And you see, let me tell you the story from the beginning. Because once the CCS decided that these guys have to be released, then suddenly somebody realized that 2 out of 3 were in Kashmir jails. And then they said, Farooq will have to be informed, his permission would be required. And then they said, who's going to talk to Farooq? And they looked around the room and as usual, Dulat will go. Brijesh said Dulat will go. So I said, sir, I will go. I looked at Jaswant Singh. I said, please call up Dr. Farooq and, somebody political needs to inform him and then I will go. So Jaswant Singh picked up the phone and called Farooq. And I went back to my office and I then called Farooq. I said, I'll be coming, sir. He said, I know you're coming. So might as well come and stay with me. So it was a nice welcoming invitation. But when I got there, it was pretty nasty.
What did he say?
And, it was the month of Ramzan. And when I reached there, it was iftar time. And he said, let me go and say my prayers. And he said his prayers and came and drank his juice and ate his dates and whatever. And then he said, let's go into the drawing room. And that's when all hell broke loose. Because he abused. He said everything. You guys are making a terrible mistake. He said everything. And he picked up the phone, he banged the phone, he rang up Advanis, he rang up Jaswant Singh, he rang up everybody. And he said, it's not on. What was I to say to him? The first thing, of course, he said to me, it's you again. You were there during Rubaiya's time, you are again here. I said, sir, then
So to give context, there's an entire generation who doesn't know who Rubaiya is. Rubaiya is Mehbooba Mufti's sister. She gets abducted by the Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front militants. And once again, a swap deal is made for her safety. And this is now the second time that you're in the middle of actually releasing terrorists in exchange for the safety of civilians.
That's right. So he said, it's you again. I said, sir, in Rubaiya's case, I was with you. I was with the state government. I was posted in this thing. Now I've come on behalf of government of India. He said, you're all the bloody same now. Say this thing. You'll regret this. It's a normal thing. And
did he say he would resign?
Oh, he said it so many times. You know, when Farooq creates theatre, he's at his best.
But did he feel it? Because he didn't eventually resign. Did he mean it?
Of course, he it's a mix with Farooq. Of course he felt it.
But he was trying to persuade you to not do this.
No, he couldn't persuade me. I was nobody.
Or the government.
I was just
Advani, Jaswant.
Yeah, he did speak to them. I mean, that's reality. And he banged the phone down and all. He said, Advani ji, aap bahut galti kar rahe hain. And then first he spoke to Jaswant, because Jaswant is the one who had called him initially. So he said, Jaswant Singh, aap bahut galti kar rahe ho. So Jaswant must have said, we are helpless, this, that, and he bagged the phone. Then he picked up the phone and spoke to Advani. Because he realized, he's smart enough, that Advani was not fully on board.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, how visible was Advani's opposition to the release of the terrorists?
Well, when Advani starts rubbing his hands and there's
gesture,
he was stressed out. And he felt that this is the weakness of India.
But did he verbalize it?
No. In fact, he absented himself from that crucial CCS meeting.
Which in itself is a sign, right?
Yeah, but the point is that he could never have opposed what Atalji decided. If Atalji decided this is to be done, then it had to be done. Advani could never take an opposite position. But yeah, he was not very happy about it. If there was one person who was not very happy, then it was Advani.
Now, you have said in your memoirs, you have said this week that there were a number of goof-ups. Everybody goofed up. It was a goof-up. Let's start with a goof-up that is alleged at the level of intel. There is one account that suggests that there was a junior RANW officer in Kathmandu that warned his senior, who subsequently ended up being an RANW officer who was a passenger on board that plane, Mr. Tomar. But let's first start with the intel failing. This junior officer warns Mr. Tomar that there is a apprehension of a hijack. He's picking up chatter in Nepal, in Kathmandu. That assessment is not taken seriously. Is that goof up number one?
No, there was no such information. This is all hogwash as far as I can.
There was no concrete intelligence input of a hijack.
It's very clear. You see what's made out in the movie. I've seen again bits of it. That fellow goes running around and catching all the Nepalese and bashing them up and all. We don't do these things. Nor was any Nepalese bashed up or anything. The government of Nepal would have protested very strongly. But there's a crucial point here which is being missed.
Yeah.
Poor Tomar is being blamed for having intelligence and not taking action on it, that it was on his table and he knew about it. Now, if he knew that a hijack was imminent, would he be on that hijack? This is a point which everybody has missed out.
No, he didn't take that input seriously. I'm not alleging a conspiracy.
No.
I'm saying he misjudged that input.
My point is that suppose I get an intelligence report on my table that something is going to happen. And I'm going to Delhi. I would think twice about which flight I'm going to take.
So let's talk about what is called the ghost passenger of IC-814. When the government made public the list of passengers on board that hijacked plane, Mr. Tomar, an RANW official's name was not revealed. When you wrote your memoirs, you also didn't really tell us that there was this ghost passenger. I think he was in seat 16C, if I remember my details correctly. He was an RANW officer, and later you said it was pure coincidence that he was on the flight. But the Pakistanis and the Taliban seemed to know that there was a sleuth on the plane because they later issued public statements about it. The theory then became that one of the reasons that commandos were not deployed to stop the plane leaving Amritsar was because there was an RANW official on the plane, Mr. Tomar, who had brother-in-laws in two very powerful men, N.K. Singh, then a bureaucrat in the PMO, and Nikhil Kumar, who headed the NSG. So the theory became ghost passenger on plane, Mr. Tomar, 16C, RANW officer, Government of India is dissuaded from deploying commandos because of this highly connected officer. I want to give you the opportunity to tell us about this.
Dissuaded by whom?
I don't know.
By me?
No,
Let me
I
tell
don't
you.
know.
Let me
I don't
tell
know.
you. Let me tell you. Poor Nikhil never came into all this. He was not seen anywhere, not heard anywhere. Poor fellow. In fact, at one stage, somebody tried to blame him that, he couldn't send his commandos in time and all. I said, that's rubbish. By the time Nikhil was informed and he could get his commandos ready and the aircraft and all, it would be far too late. It would take the whole exercise or operation would take close to 3 hours, by which time the aircraft would certainly have left Amritsar.
Okay.
So Nikhil never came into the picture. N.K. Singh, because we were both in the PMO, we were colleagues, certainly he was concerned.
I mean, this was his brother-in-law.
Yeah, he was concerned. But that concern was only exhibited to me. He would ask me every now and then, what's happening? Is everything all right? I said, yeah, it's all right. It will be all right. It is all right. Why are you worried so much? I mean, I understood why he's worried, because it was his sister's husband who was involved. But at that point of time, let me tell you, while the plane was in Amritsar or whatever it was, nobody in government knew that there was an RNAW officer on board that flight.
You knew?
I knew, but nobody else knew.
You did not tell the cabinet?
No, I didn't tell anybody.
Why was that?
There was no need to tell anybody, no need to advertise it. Gradually it became known. I mean, once NK's stress and tension and all that it became known. But again, it was known to very few people. Like, for instance, I think Jaswant Singh knew, because he was finance minister at that time, and NK and Jaswant Singh were good friends. But just a couple of people knew. And we didn't want to advertise it, because what you are suggesting that the...
I'm not suggesting...
No, you are saying that the ISI or the Taliban knew. They didn't know. Nobody.
They didn't know?
No.
They got to know later?
They didn't get to know at all. Otherwise, that poor fellow, he might have been beheaded. Nobody knew.
That is the important question. Imagine if they had known.
Till Tomar came back to Delhi, nobody knew. And that is the reason we never spoke about it, we never advertised it. His life would have been in jeopardy.
Because that's what I was going to ask next.
No, not at all.
Imagine if the hijackers had known that there was a spook on the plane.
Absolutely. He would have been blindfolded, a knife kept over his neck, and they would have said, now talk. No, nobody knew.
Subsequent commentary by the Taliban, by the Pakistanis, tried to use this to their own rhetoric. That they
can use whatever they like, but the fact
But nobody knew.
Nobody.
At the time, during the negotiations, did it come up?
Not at all. Nobody knew till Tomar came back to Delhi on the 31st.
You were asked why you didn't reveal this in your memoirs. Were you trying to protect his identity?
Of course I was. As NK was concerned, and I was concerned because I was a colleague of his. He was a colleague of ours. So naturally, we didn't want his identity revealed, because, as it is, the poor fellow was suffering, and he suffered for 7-8 days. I met him as soon as he came home. I'd gone to receive him at the airport, but I was a bit late. Then I went to his house and I said, sorry for whatever has happened, but how are you? And he was fine.
And I guess his
possibly
priority...
a bit shaken, but he was okay.
And his priority would have been at that time to somehow play down his identity.
That's right. So I said, what did you do? He said, I just sat quietly.
Yeah.
And he said, I didn't look these guys in the eye at all. I avoided eye contact. I just sat quietly. And he said in the last few days he stopped eating also, because going to the toilet was a big problem. So he said, I didn't eat.
But his identity as an RNW official was never leveraged or sought to be leveraged by the hijackers?
Not at all. Not one bit.
Now,
That would have been a big issue then.
Yeah. Now the hijacked plane itself, 50 odd minutes on the ground in Amritsar. The accounts one reads is that the Punjab police was ready to send its commandos in, bring in the Bowsers, storm the plane if needed. But that never happened. What we do not know till this date is that was the proposal opposed? Was it delayed? What was the thinking in the decision?
There was no proposal as such, and there was no decision either.
What does that mean? What do you mean there was no decision?
I'll tell you what happened, when the CMG Crisis Management Group assembled, and it assembled pretty fast, I think within 20 or 25 minutes of everybody being informed that there was a hijack. And so when we assembled, the plane was in the air, coming from Kathmandu to Delhi, and nobody knew where it was going to go. All these hijacked planes, there are some favorite places where they land up. Srinagar, Jammu, Amritsar, this is where it goes. And so everybody was anticipating where is it going to go. And when the plane headed for Amritsar and landed in Amritsar, there was a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
Because everybody thought that Captain Devi Sharan has been smart. Instead of going to Lahore, which is next door, he landed in Amritsar. Now this provides an opportunity, like you say. Then what happened?
Yeah.
Then what happened, that obviously the CMG got in touch with the Punjab police. Now I'm telling you the story which I heard from my batchmate and DG of Punjab at that time, Sarabjit. Now Sarabjit says he was in Chandigarh, and in fact he was coming out of a dentist appointment when he heard of this. And he said when he says his officers were in position, he was informed by the IG Amritsar, and there was a DIG who was at the ATC and things. So he said Punjab police were all in readiness. Now he says that he had told Delhi that Punjab police had the commanders and they could storm the aircraft if required, but they could not say how many casualties there would be. Now this whole business of casualties is what stopped everybody in their steps. Now Sarabjit also says that his chief minister, Prakash Singh Badal, was in his village that evening. And when he spoke to Badal, Badal Sahab said, we don't want any bloodshed in Amritsar. There was a similar kind of sentiment in the crisis management group also. Suppose the plane is stormed, how many killings, what will happen? That thing was that.
Because the hijackers had threatened to kill a passenger every hour at one point.
And the captain had
or every 10 minutes, I think, at one point.
The captain had said that they have possibly killed one or two people. By the time they got to Amritsar, he said that he had told the CMG that possibly they've cut somebody's throat. They may have killed one or two people, and so we don't know what's happening inside. So it was that kind of thing. You see, I have always...
Was it a mistake? Was it a mistake to not stop the plane in Amritsar?
That's what I'm coming to. I've always maintained since that day that it was a goof up on our part, that was an opportunity which the plane should never have been allowed to leave Amritsar. But having said that...
But who told the Punjab police stand down? Somebody would have... It would have been somebody's order to say...
Nobody said... Sarabjit also was very relieved that he got no orders from Delhi. He was waiting for orders from Delhi.
But weren't you all discussing how do we stop this plane in Amritsar?
Yeah. In fact, then somebody said, now there were two of us, the DIB and me, both of whom were batchmates of Sarabjit. Now Sarabjit was a very good friend of mine. I didn't want to get into this conversation with him because this was a formal thing. I told Shamal, I said, you speak to Sarabjit and tell him. So Shamal spoke to Sarabjit and said, can't you deflate the
tires?
And Sarabjit said to me later on, I don't know what Shamal was trying to tell me. How was I going to deflate the tires with a pea shooter? Do you know how thick and how heavy a tire is?
But what about bringing in a Bowser to stop the plane
All
from
these
taking
things
off?
these things were considered. The DG was also told, okay, why can't you bring in a Bowser?
Yeah.
But the thing is that the hijackers made sure that plane kept shifting. They didn't allow...
On the tarmac?
On the tarmac, yeah. So it was difficult, but it could still have been stopped if, you just place something there.
Correct. Obstructed its path.
Yeah. But now, having seen bits of this series, I feel it's just as well that it did not happen.
Why?
Because we don't know how many people would be killed. And if the ultimate aim of the government was to get all our hostages back, safe and sound, then possibly we could have lost 10,
It's a complicated decision because you release terrorists who come back to kill many more Indians. I'm not saying it's an easy decision. I don't know. It's a real ethical dilemma.
It's a very difficult call. At that time, I certainly felt that, this plane should not be allowed to go.
Was there no other way by stealth, you openly storm the plane, you do it quietly, you obstruct its path?
All these things were considered that, what is the best.
So let me ask you like this. Was there a slowness in decision making, or was there a panic? Or was there a paralysis? What is the word you'd use?
Well, you could say there was a kind of paralysis because nobody took a decision. I'll be honest about that.
But whose job was it to take the decision?
Yeah, it was all up. All of us were there and we should have taken a decision. But who is to take that decision? That's the point. The point here is that it was a very tough call. It was not an easy call. And as I said, I've always maintained, and I've said so now to Veer Sanghvi and one or two others also, that that was a goof up. Having seen a little more of this movie and what was going on there inside that aircraft, who knows how many people might have been killed in Amritsar if there was a sort of a shootout. Then the question which arises, and that my friend Anand Ani raised with Veer, that these guys didn't have any weapons.
I thought they had pistols and grenades. Did they not have? They used a knife to kill Rupin Katyal.
That is something again which nobody knows. So Anand mentioned this. He said they only had knives. As far as
maybe they said they had pistols, but they did not.
Yeah. Now, if you see the series, that fellow puts a pistol to Devi Sharan's head, So the thing is that we don't know the reality.
Was Devi Sharan not able to communicate with you? Was he able to communicate directly with you all, the pilot?
He was communicating with the ATC.
Yes.
And that's it. And if Devi Sharan, now this is another point which, you could think of. Now we are thinking all the time of what is going on in the CMG. Just try and imagine what's going on in the captain and the crew's this thing. If the captain or Devi Sharan had said that these guys are only armed with only knives, then there would be no problem storming the plane at all. What is the worst that they could do with knives? So the thing is that this is something which...
So we do not know for sure whether the hijackers...
I still don't know.
No survivor's account has confirmed whether they were pistols, because I've read that they had pistols and grenades.
I don't know. Now, it's a long time ago. I knew one of the people who was hijacked, apart from Tomar.
Yeah.
And he was released, an elderly person who was released in Dubai.
Yes.
And he was the first one to meet all of us. And I said, he said it was very tough inside there. And he said, one stage, I said, I just need to go. I have to go to the loo. And these guys said, you can't. And he said, I'll pee here, something like that.
Yeah.
So he was released in Dubai, he was an elderly man.
But look at how many places this plane went.
Now, this whole thing about whether they had pistols or not, I don't have an
But
answer.
you all would have known at that time.
No, I still don't know. It's only Anand Arni who mentioned to Veer the other day that the pistols came on board. Now, these are theories,
The pistols came on board?
In Lahore. that these guys were handed a bag in Lahore.
So when the plane stops for refueling in Lahore, that is when the weapons per Anand Army are handed to the hijackers. Possibly. And before that, while the plane was in Amritsar, when it was hijacked from Kathmandu...
Nobody knows. But I don't know what Devi Sharad has written in his book. He's written a book. And I don't know what he said.
But at that time, when you all had to make your decisions, you obviously thought they were armed.
Of course we thought they were armed. We thought they were armed. And when they cut this fellow's throat, it didn't strike us that possibly they only have knives, It didn't strike anybody. Now you could say that also is a goof up.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing you do is establish...
What I'm trying to say...
That's why I'm trying to understand what was the channel of communication. That is what I don't know.
I'm trying to say, that even today I don't have an answer. Devi Sharan might have an answer. I don't know what his answer has been.
Yeah.
Whether they were knives or pistols or what they were at that point.
If they were only knives, with the benefit of hindsight, till Lahore, when there is a theory that they were weaponized.
No, then the plane would never have gone to Lahore if they were only knives.
But Anand Army is saying, you're saying that the weapons were handed over at Lahore.
I'm not saying. Anand says that there was a bag which was handed over in Lahore. So possibly pistols were handed over in Lahore. I mean, this is all conjecture,
There's yet another account that even after the deal had been done, this is Ruchi Ghanshyam's account, whose husband was one of the first people sent from the High Commission in Islamabad. That even after they went away, they said, we've left a present for the Indians, and everybody in the delegation assumed that a bomb had been left on the plane. So a lot of time was spent looking for this bomb and a red bag, and then nobody knows whether there was one, whether they were just playing, whether these were mind games.
Yeah. Now that red bag reminds me of a funny story, because this friend of ours I was telling you about, Rudy Singh, who was released in this thing, he said to me, I'm out, but I've left my briefcase there. So will you please get it out once?
I can't believe he could even think of getting his bag
back. So when I saw this whole business about a red bag, because he also talked of a maroon briefcase.
Surreal. But let's cut to the negotiations. Now the negotiations begin.
Yeah.
The initial demand is 36 Pakistani prisoners, $200 million. It's whittled down to these 3 terrorists who are released.
These $1 million and things, frankly, let me repeat here, and because I never heard about the money part at all.
Yeah.
In any negotiation or anything.
You didn't even hear of it as a demand?
No, I didn't hear of it as a demand. In fact, this story came up when Jaswant Singh went to Kandahar. And then the story was that Jaswant Singh had to go because that money had to be carried. There was no monetary transaction at all.
But was there an ask for it?
Now it seems there was, because Anand says there was.
Yeah.
Although he says the figure is much less than what has been mentioned in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But was money paid?
No, not at all. Now, Jaswant Singh's going, that's the other big question.
Why do you think he went?
I'll tell you why he went. I'm a witness.
In your memoirs, you say Jaswant was a very lonely man at that time. He was trying to reach all the global capitals for help. He rang up Strobe Talbot. He was trying to get the Americans to intervene.
Everybody, nobody took his call. At the end, I was sitting with him one day, and he said, I am trying to ring up Mutawakil.
The Taliban foreign minister.
Yeah, and he says he won't take my call.
But India had no relations with the Taliban at that time.
No, nothing. He was just trying.
Yeah.
And Mutawakil wouldn't take his call. So Jaswant Singh was a very lonely person. And he felt responsible, that being foreign minister, he couldn't reach out to anybody. Nobody was helping.
Why was nobody helping? The Americans could have helped.
Yeah, the relationship, if you recall at that time, because this was not long after.
It was the year of Kargil. Bill Clinton had, already had words with Nawaz Sharif.
That's all right, but it was also not long after
the nuclear
thing. So the Americans were a bit
wary
or not particularly friendly at that point of time. They did help out in Kargil. But still, it was not...
Why do you think Jaswant Singh should have gone?
To?
Kandahar?
Now, in hindsight, he should not have gone because it just gave it more publicity. But he was, as I say, a very lonely person. I'll tell you exactly what happened. Once this decision was taken, and I'll give you the context of it, Jaswant Singh immediately put his hand up and said, Atalji, can I go? And Atalji said, yeah, okay, chale jaiye aap. What had happened when the passengers were let off in Dubai 28 or whatever the figure was, Sharad Yadav, the aviation minister, had gone to receive them. So that again was on Jaswant Singh's mind.
That he should go and receive.
Ab main leke aaunga.
But the problem is he was escorting Masood Azhar, Umar Sheikh and Mushtaq Zargar. The optics of that.
He didn't look at it that way. In fact, well, so was I. I was bringing them from Srinagar. And when I was...
You brought them from Srinagar?
Not Srinagar, from Jammu. I brought
from Jammu and Kashmir, yes. Hang on.
Ah.
There are two stories happening here at once. So let's start with Jaswant Singh and why he went.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So he put his hand up and he said, can I go? And Atalji said, yeah, aap jaiye. Jaiye. Le aaye.
And nobody thought the optics of India's foreign minister escorting 3 dreaded terrorists to a country where we had no relations with that country.
Everybody forgot that somebody would have to carry those terrorists also there. What they remembered was, at that point of time, this is how, the brain or memory plays tricks. What was on everybody's mind was that finally our passengers, our hostages are going to come home. And Jaswant Singh ji will bring them home. So that is what is on his mind.
But with hindsight, you feel he shouldn't have gone?
Yeah, because of what you're saying, the optics, that...
or at least gone on a separate plane.
Yeah, well, how many planes were there to go? I mean,
it was Kandahar.
Too many planes. So the thing is that, now what happens is that I was told to bring these guys and I'm...
Yeah, can we talk about that? Farooq has had an explosion. He's tried to convince you all not to release them.
Yeah.
Then they are to be released. And you are to bring them from their jail to Delhi. Right?
No, not from jail, but from Jammu to Delhi.
But somebody releases them and takes them where? To a safe house? How does it work?
No, brings them to the airport, to the aircraft.
So from the jail to the aircraft. You are on that flight?
I'm on the flight.
Can you talk about that journey? Did you meet them, come face to face with them?
No, not at all.
What happened?
What happened was that I was waiting there because I had got a message saying that Jaswant Singh ji is waiting. So bring these guys straight to the tarmac where he's flying off to Kandahar.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, wherever he's waiting, we'll go there.
Right.
And it's not a very long flight from Jammu to Delhi. So I remember the IG or DIG Jammu at that time, Ved, he brought these guys and he said, oh, tayar hai. Maine kaha unko...
He brought them where? To the airport?
To the aircraft,
Okay.
Yeah. And they were blindfolded, so he brought them. And मैंने कहा इनको बिठा दो अंदर और फिर पर्दा लगा दो फिर मैं भी बैठ जाऊंगा और ले जाएंगे इनको तो इनको बिठा दिया पर्दा लगा दिया and फिर मैं बैठ के और हम चले गए. So there was no face to face with these guys.
And then they reached Delhi.
When they reached Delhi, I got off and I handed them over to Jaswant Singh.
But who physically took them on board the plane that flew to Kandahar?
I don't know. I don't remember that because I just got off and left.
You didn't come face to face?
No, I didn't. Not that it's a big deal, but I didn't.
No, but what was...
They didn't see me and I didn't see them. I saw 2 blindfolded guys going in.
But look, you've spent your life, working on Jammu and Kashmir, India, Pakistan. These 3 men, in particular Masood Azhar and Umar Sheikh, they go on to be kind of most wanted men, not just for India, but for the world. Umar Sheikh kills Daniel Pearl. Masood Azhar, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, is responsible for countless terror attacks in India, right?
Yeah.
Mushtaq Zargar is a homegrown Indian Kashmiri terrorist.
The worst.
The worst. I mean, even today, all these years later, it kind of makes your blood boil that these men are, that they were able to walk free.
Yeah, it could make your blood boil. But
and Masood Azhar is sitting there in Pakistan.
You see, this thing...
So is Zargar.
Yeah. Now I'll bring you to another little story of the Agara summit,
Yes.
When...
Musharraf and Vajpayee.
So the High Commissioner here in those days was Ashraf Qazi. So when I was writing my book on Kashmir, I had a long chat with Qazi Sahib. I said, what happened in Agra? Because I have two accounts of Agra. One from Brajesh, whose thing was कि भाई वो तो होते होते रह गया, तो हो गया था सारा कुछ. And he was dejected. He came back disappointed कि सब कुछ हो गया था, नहीं हुआ. And his thing was that these Pakistanis made a mistake. They put all the eggs in the Vajpayee basket, and the old man could only take that much and no more. And so it didn't happen. It's unfortunate it didn't happen. And obviously, the Prime Minister also came back disappointed. And but I asked Qazi Saab, because that's Qazi's story. I said, you were a buddy of Advani ji's. You had a wonderful relationship with him. Then what happened? He said, what happened is that the Advani of Delhi was the Advani of Agra was very different from the Advani of Delhi. And he said it all went wrong when Advani ji went to call out Musharraf at Rashtrapati Bhavan. And the first thing he said to Musharraf is, कि फिर आप दाऊद इब्राहिम को छोड़ देंगे. Musharraf said, Advani ji, पहले आगरा तो पहुंच जाए. So he says it didn't start off well. And that's how it went.
Yeah. But look, Masood Azhar is still
there.
So
now Dawood is also still there.
Yes, but Masood Azhar is a clear and present danger to India.
Yeah, I've talked to the Pakistanis about Masood Azhar and to former ISI chiefs and things. And I said, look, the old story about Dawood, you could not find Dawood in Karachi. Everybody knew he was in Karachi.
But you can find Masood Azhar easily.
But Masood Azhar, so उसमें क्या है? Everybody knows कि वो कहाँ है, भावलपुर में है या जहाँ भी है. So what's the problem? And the answer I got was that we are also looking for him. I said,
that's bullshit, right?
I said, you'll keep looking all your lives.
Yeah, that's utter rubbish.
And we'll keep waiting. So these are things, once, since it was their show, their man, they're not going to hand him over. Once he's gone, he's gone.
What was Pakistan's play here? Like, look at the year. It is 1999. It starts with the Lahore bus. It ends in the middle of the year with Kargil. The Pakistanis, what's remaining of them, have to retreat. Nawaz Sharif is read the riot act by Bill Clinton. The Indian army does a stellar job on the battlefield, creates the conditions for Clinton to tell Sharif, take your men back. Sharif gets deposed. Musharraf has a coup. Musharraf takes over. By the end of the year, a plane with Indian passengers is hijacked. What is Pakistan's play? This whole year is a year of schizophrenia by Pakistan. Yeah,
you see, this was, in some ways, I feel it was a continuation of Kargil. And Kargil,
the hijacking was a continuation of Kargil?
Hijacking, because, not the hijacking per se. The Pakistanis were getting desperate to get Masood Azhar out.
Was this Musharraf's plan?
I don't know whose plan it was.
He could have helped if he wanted to. When the plane was in Lahore. He could have helped.
Of course he could have helped.
And he didn't.
No, he didn't. Nobody helped.
So what was the play?
See, I'll tell you something. This is my instinct, and I've said this repeatedly, that a lot of the terror attacks that we faced, and I am referring particularly to the attack on Parliament and then what happened in 26/11.
Yeah.
I've always felt that this is due to Musharraf's frustrations, because this attack on Parliament happened after Agra, the frustration of Agra.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that took a while. But these things take a long time to mature in the pipeline. If you're working on something.
So did
an
India
attack by sea.
Yeah, 26/11.
Yeah, and you have the opportunity. You have a David Hadley, and the Americans are also half cooperating with you, because this fellow was at least a triple agent.
David Hadley, the mastermind of 26/11.
Yeah, so
which is why the Americans never gave him up to India.
That's right.
Where is he now?
Must be in America somewhere.
So you think
I don't know, but now I read
he's
that
American
other fellow, that Rana, whatever.
The subword or whatever his name was, yeah.
That now the Americans are saying, if you want him, we can hand him over to you after all these years. There was a news item.
So do you think India, talking about goof-ups, Musharraf was seen as, at one point, as India's best bet to get a deal. Whether it was Manmohan Singh or Vajpayee, across
still
government.
maintain
How can you maintain that if you believe that Kargil we know to be Musharraf's handiwork, IC-814, Musharraf doesn't intervene, Musharraf, irony of ironies, Indian intelligence tips off Musharraf that your life is in danger from Jaish-e-Mohammed, the same Jaish-e-Mohammed whose head is Masood Azhar, all enabled by Pakistan. I mean, Pakistan just, the levels of schizophrenia are befuddling. Why would Musharraf be anyone's best bet?
I would always maintain that Musharraf was our best bet.
How?
Because I'm looking at it from the Kashmir angle, I always look at these things from the Kashmir angle. And Musharraf said time and time again what no other Pakistani leader has said, that whatever is acceptable to Kashmir and Kashmiris would be acceptable to Pakistan. I felt that was a huge, huge compromise. And that is why...
But he clearly used to say one thing and do another thing.
Well, that may be so, but that's with it goes for everybody, We say a lot of things and we do different things, Now we had a ceasefire which is still thankfully holding on the LOC in February 2021. Now, the sentiment of feeling at that time, and this was Imran and Bajwa, the feeling was that this will open more doors, Now things will happen. Nothing happened. And on the contrary, immediately articles came out on our side saying this is a part of another trickery of Pakistan, this ceasefire. Whereas Pakistan's narrative is that India needed this ceasefire desperately because of what was happening in East Ladakh. That is the timing of it, The Chinese incursion.
But the fact is that every time you think of Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar being kind of out there, footloose and fancy-free, to be used as weapons when needed, to be disowned when desired, it's very difficult to construct the framework. I know you've spoken about the need for dialogue with Pakistan.
I still say that.
But my question is, when I think of these two terrorists, the Jaish and the Lashkar, when I think of the fact that unlike a Dawood who's possibly old and redundant, which doesn't make all his crimes irrelevant.
Even, I think,
but these men are clear and present dangers to India today.
Not the Lashkar, man. I don't think so.
All right, but Jaish?
I think Lashkar is also sort of gradually
fading away. All right, but the Jaish.
It's done his job.
The Jaish.
Like the Hurriyat has done its job.
But the Jaish.
Yeah, the Jaish, I mean, you could give it new names, whatever it is.
Jamaat-ud-Dawa,
now, look at the number of attacks which are happening in Jammu and Kashmir now,
Yes.
That Poonch-Rajouri area keeps getting attacked, And there have been so many attacks in Jammu. Out of 10 districts, 8 have been seriously affected. In fact, 3 of our corps are tied down in dealing with terror. 15 corps, 16 corps and 9 corps in Pathankot, all are dealing with terror in Jammu.
Yeah.
So it's serious, and this goes on. Now we say, I mean, when I say, I'm not talking about government and I'm not talking of our intelligence agencies or whatever, but the general thing is this is a deep state. Yeah, of course this is a deep state, but it will not happen even in Pakistan without the knowledge of the political leadership. This happened in Kargil also. Nawaz said,
Mujhe to
bataya nahi tha. And Pakistanis say he knew very well what was happening.
Yeah. Which makes it very difficult. But I want to end by coming back to the hijacking.
Okay.
Mr. Doval called you several times. Then these passengers...
Not several times, 2-3 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now
but the crucial call came, as I told you, on the 30th.
Now everybody comes home. Do you all regroup to say, okay, what were the learnings? What could we have done? Did you get a chance to talk to the negotiators about what they went through? Did Doval regret the process that he had to go through?
You see, that's a fair enough question. He would regret it because he was Advani's protege and their thinking was alike.
Yeah.
So, like Advani felt, Ajit would also have felt that.
This was a mistake.
Yeah, but you're pitchforked into that. What do? You have a job to do, and you do it. Ajit would do any job. He's a thorough professional. So, mentally he would have thought that, ये क्या हो रहा है?
Yeah.
क्यों हो रहा है?
Speaking to some of the survivors this week, it occurred to me that as a country, we never, in a way, memorialized what these people went through.
Exactly.
And I feel that the missing piece of this, we've debated a lot about the plane at Amritsar, why did we release these 3 terrorists? But what about a kind of acknowledgement of what these passengers on board this plane went through, in a way kind of forgotten in the annals of our history?
That's exactly what I started by telling you, that now having seen a bit of this series, it's pretty morbid, what those guys were.
You were not angered by the series.
No, I was not angered by it. This is reality. I mean, we'd known about it.
No, I'm saying this series created such a storm.
No, why should I be angered by it? What is
Firstly,
that?
you're not angered easily.
No,
you've seen too much.
I mean, what is it? But I did feel, and that is why I said I somewhat revised my opinion about Amritsar, that possibly it's just as well that nothing happened, because there would have been killings in Amritsar. And we don't know how many killings there would have been. So from the passenger's point of view, which you've come to now, and I agree with you entirely, let me put it like this. Any passenger on that plane, or any member of the crew, including Captain Devi Sharan, would not have wanted a storming. Sure. There may have been no captain of the aircraft after Amritsar.
So it's easy to say what should have been done.
Yeah, exactly. I said it, I have been saying it, but now having seen this thing, as I said, it's pretty morbid. I sort of revised my opinion a bit that, we don't know what would have happened. And if the top priority, and I can tell you this, that was the top priority from day one. We discussed a lot of things. Even an Entebbe type raid was discussed. Can the Air Force go in? Could they do this? Could they do that?
I was going to ask you, what was the response of the 3 service chiefs? Because one option, Entebbe type raid, open another front, make the LOC hot, get Pakistan to intervene. Why were those not options considered?
Those options should have been considered diplomatically. Okay. But our relationship with Pakistan at that point in time was such that I don't think that option was available. I think our friend, what's his name, was the High Commissioner there.
Partha Sarthi.
Yeah, and Partha says that it was a tough time.
No, Pakistan would not have diplomatically done something, but was there a military intervention that was considered of any kind?
This business of military intervention brings me to the attack on Parliament.
Yeah. And Parakaram. Now, why was there no military intervention then after the attack on Parliament? Because our narrative or the interpretation was, this is the worst thing that has happened. But you did massive troop build-up. You lost hundreds of soldiers in demining operations eventually. And that was a political decision. You can't blame the military for it.
No, I'm not blaming the military for it, but I'm just bringing you back to that time or moment when these things were discussed again.
But what does that tell us?
And now I'll tell you a little story. I used to do a regular this thing while I was in the PMO, a lecture at the NDC on Kashmir. They used to call me. I did it for 3 years while I was in the PMO. And one of these years, these brigadiers got very excited and all that. Politicians can never decide anything. Why did nothing happen? I said, are you sure it's the politicians and not your generals? So they were taken aback. And the fact is that after the attack on Parliament, the general said, no.
But the build-up happened.
The build-up happened. But are you ready for war? No. It'll take time. We need time. And I remember Atalji remarking, aapko hamesha time chahiye hota hai. I'm sure in his heart of hearts, he didn't want war. Nobody wants war.
But just for the record, because I've interviewed a bunch of army officers from that time, their account is that there's a massive troop build-up that happens. We lose lives because of the mining and the demining. We never, ever get the go-ahead for war.
That's the Fauji narrative. The political narrative is that...
I mean, would you believe Fauji's or politicians?
No, on this occasion, I believe the politician. I was there. It happened in my presence. It was one of those rare meetings. I had no business with the CCS anymore while I was in the PMO. But because of this attack on Parliament, I was called in. And it had happened. And Atalji said, अगर हम अंदर जाएं आप लोग तैयार हैं तो the answer was no, अभी टाइम चाहिए होगा. So he says, यही तो आपकी मुसीबत है, यही तो प्रॉब्लम है, आप कभी तैयार होते ही नहीं.
Well,
I'm not casting aspersions.
Yeah, the Faujis would have a very different narrative.
Even if you go back to Bangladesh, even Manik Shah asked for time.
Of course,
Prime Minister, I need time.
And from all of this was born the Cold Start doctrine to avoid situations like this and so on. So that's a whole different conversation. But to end, look back, you say you are now revisiting your assumption that not stopping the plane at Amritsar was a mistake. If there's one thing you think could have been done differently, something we've learned, so that God forbid this ever happens again, and I hope it does not. What is your learning? What is your personal learning?
See, one thing has happened as a result of this hijack, and that was that now these sensitive airports have NSG commandos present, which was not there earlier. So that was a lesson, direct lesson, which came out of this hijacking, that we need not just Punjab police commandos, but NSG commandos who will be under the control of Delhi.
Yeah.
So that is a lesson. The other lesson, I mean, people won't like to hear is that everybody negotiates. That's.
So when you say we don't negotiate with terrorists,
we all negotiate,
including even Israel, who famously made this a cult position.
That's what I was coming to. This matter was raised in Parliament.
Yeah.
When the UPA took over on negotiating with terrorists. And the UPA government said that we should put it down that we will never negotiate with terrorists. And Jaswant Singh stood up, and I gave him full marks, and he said, yes, as a matter of principle, fine. But there will be times when you will have to negotiate. Everybody negotiates. The Israelis do it all the time.
Yeah.
Now, why is Netanyahu stuck?
Yeah.
Because this time they've sent 6 bodies out of those hostages that they have, and there's huge hangama in Israel.
Yeah. So everybody sometimes has to negotiate with terrorists.
Everybody negotiates.
Yeah.
Everybody negotiates. And everybody talks to terrorists also.
I mean, you certainly have.
I've talked to a lot of them, and we all talk to terrorists. Who has not?
No, many people have not, because their professional jobs don't need them to talk to terrorists.
Yeah, that's another matter.
Yes.
But you can't say, I will not talk to a terrorist if it's part of your job.
That needs a whole different book and a whole different podcast. I will leave it there. Provocative as ever, Mr. Dulat. Thank you so much for your candor and for all the stories. Looking forward to your next book.
Inshallah.
Thank you. Thanks, Dulat.
Thanks a lot.